Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, we now continue our meeting, item number 18. We are very, very pleased to welcome this morning in our committee His Excellency Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Affairs Minister Mohammed bin Abdul Rahman Al Thani from Qatar, who is accompanied by a delegation of several officials and, of course, Ambassador Abdul Rahman bin Mohammed Sulaiman Al Khulaifi, who is a well-known personality and figure in this Parliament. Your Excellency, the European Union has very good relations with all countries of the Gulf Cooperation Council, including Qatar. EU-Qatari relations are important for us, and this relationship has recently been strengthened thanks to the recent signing of the cooperation agreement in March 2018. It will hopefully serve as a basis for enhanced political dialogue and a deeper cooperation in sectorial areas. We, as a European Parliament, fully support Qatar's diversification efforts and the country's transformation agenda, namely the Qatar National Vision 2030. As you may be aware, Your Excellency, the EU and the European Parliament have adopted a neutral position on the ongoing crisis in the Gulf. After 1 year, the EU has the same position. We support Kuwaiti mediation efforts in the Gulf crisis, as GCC cohesion is critical to fostering regional cooperation and stability. All of us are following the recent developments, and the situation has been deteriorating over the last weeks. We believe de-escalation is vital to achieve regional stability. The crisis should be an opportunity for the GCC to emerge stronger rather than be weakened. And this was also the message we sent out when a delegation from this Foreign Affairs Committee visited Riyadh a few months ago. So, we have invited you, Your Excellency, because we would like you to inform us about Qatar's views on the Gulf crisis. How are you dealing with this issue? And would you share your views on the American attempt to organize a summit with Gulf leaders in Camp David, which has now been postponed until September? We have many, many issues to discuss. Once again, Your Excellency, welcome, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Excellency. Thank you. I would like to thank all the members of the European Parliament for hosting me today and to give me the opportunity to speak to your esteemed Parliament. So allow me first of all to brief you on Qatar and Qatar foreign policy and domestic policy actually, and how it survives in this turbulent region, which is the Middle East, and especially the turmoil which unfold in the recent years. First of all, social and economic development has been at the core of the agenda of the state of Qatar, and this is not only for the domestic policy, but it's also the principles of our foreign policy. We have invested heavily in the last 20 years in order to embrace and to promote those universal values in the Middle East. First and foremost, we focused on the human development and the human capital development, and Qatar has invested heavily in the education. Now, Qatar is distinguished with its world-class universities from different backgrounds, different schools, which enjoy a freedom of expression and freedom of academia in our country, which is unique in the region. And also on the human rights front, Qatar has progressed a lot in the recent years in developing its rule and regulations and legislations to protect the human rights, to protect the labor rights, and to address all the issues that concerns the international community, and also the women empowerment has been one of the priorities of Qatar domestic policy. In fact, we have the highest proportion of employed women in the GCC and the women are outnumbering men in the university education in Qatar. Qatar believes part of its human development agenda that the culture of the coexistence and tolerance that it's been promoted. So we have invested for the last 20 years in Qatar heavily in engaging and providing a platform for an interfaith dialogue. From another aspect, we have a lot of focus on the economic development agenda for our country, because we believe that this brings prosperity for our people. And if we will monitor the progress of the state of Qatar for the last 2 decades, we will notice that Qatar today is one of the major supplier of the global energy market, and 30% of the LNG of the world is supplied from the state of Qatar. So it became a critical and crucial partner for a lot of countries, including European countries and Asia. In fact, Europe as a region is our second largest market after Asia, which is mainly in Japan and Korea, where we are supplying the LNG for United Kingdom, for Poland, for other European countries as well. And Qatar has proved in the last 2 decades that it's a reliable energy partner. Also, when you look at the size of our economy and you just take a look back, in 1998, Qatar GDP was around $10 billion, where today we are exceeding $150 billion. That means that's been multiplied 15 times in just 2 decades. And this growth and progress actually was a result of a lot of efforts carried out by the government and the people of Qatar, and that contribute to the prosperity not only of our country but also for our region. In fact, the EU is our second largest import market, where we have 30% of our imports are coming from the European countries, from the EU countries. Part of the values that also Qatar has invested a lot in the last 2 decades is really on the freedom of access to information and free media. Yes, we are in a region that the free media is not as you have it here in the West, but Qatar is among the best in the Arab region that provide a platform for freedom of expression. And actually it set the standards for the free media, where if we will see just 20 years ago, there were no any news outlet or information platform provided for the Arab people, except the official platforms and the government ones. And Qatar has supported and funded the establishment of Al Jazeera, which is now a world-class news network, not only in Arabic, but in Arabic and English and other languages. Also, we believe, as part of our value, that the constructive dialogue is the only way forward for our coexistence, for our coherence. And Qatar provided a platform for the different adversaries to come and to engage in dialogue and exchange their views and try to resolve the issues and the problem by dialogue and not by confrontation. Also, our country invested a lot in the good governance, so we established the rule of law, and this rule of law is highly respected in Qatar. And also, we believe that the transparency and fighting the corruption is one of the key elements for the success of any nation, and Qatar has proved that it has been a leader in the region. In fact, Qatar ranks the first in the world in terms of confidence in political decision-making, and second in the level of efficiency of the legislative system. So these values and the principles which really formulate the base of our vision are values which Qatar embrace and not preach for. That values that we promote after we embrace and after we practice. So it's really about the practice before preaching and then preaching for it, and that's what our aim for the other Middle East country to embrace those values, and we are willing, and we have exercised this promotion by providing our assistance to other brotherly countries in the Middle East. So if we are going to look at them as an example of the mediation, Qatar has brokered around 10 peace agreement and either brokering or supporting, which is going across the board in Lebanon, in Sudan, between the Palestinians. Also, we have invested heavily in providing opportunity for the out-of-school children to have an access to education, and we have celebrated last April that the programs which are mainly sponsored by the state of Qatar and have a lot of partners and among them countries from Europe, that we celebrated the education of 10 million out-of-school children in the vulnerable areas. Also, as we believe that the economic development is a main driver for prosperity, and we invested a lot in the economic empowerment and job creation for the Arab youth, and we have established institutions that provide an opportunity for hundreds of thousands of youth in the MENA region. Also, we see that providing the better life condition for the people in the vulnerable societies is the only way forward for further stability in the Middle East, and we have supported a reconstruction program, whether it's in Lebanon, in Gaza, in Darfur, and Sudan, and we are seeing those results these days that in Sudan, the displaced population of Darfur now are coming back to their hometowns. They've been provided with the schools, with the residents, with healthcare centers. This is part of Qatar regional vision. As a member of the Foreign Affairs Committee, I think you are all well aware that in the past year, the situation in the Middle East has escalated, and particularly in Yemen, Somalia, Libya, Syria, the rise of the transnational terrorism and the radicalism, and last but not least, the GCC crisis. Qatar vision is really, we see the interconnectedness character that the Middle East crisis has, and they are not in isolation from each other, and we believe that the Middle East needs to establish the culture of the regional security, the inclusive regional security for its own region. And unfortunately, instead of uniting to solve common threats and challenges, regional powers has sought further instability through destructive ambitions and disrespect of international law. The political maneuvering we are witnessing in the Middle East and the aggressive counterproductive measures damage this regional security structure and allowing the vacuum of power, and this vacuum is the perfect opportunity for radicalism, for terrorism. Under the same counterproductive and reckless behavior, my country, Qatar, has been subject to some of these policies and subject to a blockade just overnight. Our neighbors changed. Our neighbors, they see these changes that Qatar has adopted as a threat, and they are really quick in labeling anyone who opposes them and opposes their government as terrorist. And in Qatar, we embrace change. We welcome constructive criticism in order to develop our countries. But also we see that the answer for this agreement is not a blockade, it's really a dialogue and reason. And we called for the last year after the start of this crisis we invited our neighbors to the table and to come to explain their position and the reasons behind this blockade and the disrespect for this unique structure of the GCC and imposing all these measures against Qatar. But unfortunately, we see that there is further escalation from those neighbors. There are they ignore the calls by the international community to engage in the dialogue, and they continue their counterproductive measure not only against Qatar but also against other countries in the region. We see that our region cannot afford further crisis. We see that we have enough on our table, and there are a lot of negative impact that impacted us and impacted the stability of the Middle East. So we call that there should be a regional security engagement between all the countries in the Middle East. If we will look at all the crises, we will see the same player everywhere. So we need those players to come to the table and to really put the common security principles for this region to coexist together. And I think the EU has a critical role to play here, because anything going wrong with our region is really having this spillover on the European countries, whether it's the flow of refugees who are coming from crisis zone and the transnational terrorism, which is just flying across the board. So we welcome the efforts by the European countries to support a regional security dialogue, which Qatar believes in and Qatar try to advocate for. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Colleagues, we have now time for about 20 minutes for a discussion and exchange of views. In the moment, I have 5 colleagues who would like to speak. Salafranca, Panzeri, Bashir, Lochbihler, Carver. Did I miss anyone? So these 5, but before I give the floor to our first speaker, I would like to give the floor, of course, first to the chairwoman of the delegation, Ms. Aliou-Marie.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Monsieur le Ministre, Excellence, d'abord, soyez le bienvenu devant la Commission des Affaires étrangères. Sorry. I can speak English, but I think it's better to speak French for you and for me too. Oui, Monsieur le Ministre, Excellence, bienvenue devant la Commission des Affaires étrangères. Très rapidement, parce que le Président nous presse, je voudrais vous poser 3 questions. Le Qatar joue un rôle économique mais aussi politique essentiel dans une région stratégique à la fois pour la croissance et pour la stabilité non seulement de la région, non seulement de l'Europe mais également du monde. À partir de là, je voudrais, sur le plan économique, vous demander quels sont les domaines prioritaires de diversification économique de votre gouvernement, la diversification économique au Qatar même, et d'autre part une diversification économique à l'extérieur du Qatar par les investissements que vous faites. Donc quels sont les domaines et quelles sont les zones géographiques qui vous intéressent le plus? Ma deuxième question, qui est cette fois-ci plus politique et stratégique, c'est la lutte contre le terrorisme. C'est un phénomène auquel nous sommes tous confrontés. Pouvez-vous nous dire, à partir de quelques exemples très concrets, quelle est la part et quels sont les moyens que le Qatar met à la lutte contre le terrorisme? Que ça aille du contrôle des flux financiers jusqu'à la déradicalisation, dont je sais que c'est une de vos préoccupations déjà depuis des années. Troisième élément, celui de la crise que vous avez évoquée du GCC. Pouvez-vous me dire finalement comment vous voyez l'évolution dans les prochains mois? Parfois, on a l'impression qu'il y a des choses qui bougent, d'autres fois, on a l'impression que ça risque de durer des années. Il y a eu une réunion du GCC au Koweït, mais qui a été essentiellement à un niveau technique. Est-ce que vous pensez qu'il pourra y avoir des contacts politiques dans les prochains mois ou les prochaines années? Enfin, dernière question, vous avez parlé des valeurs et des grands principes qu'applique le Qatar. Pouvez-vous nous faire un point sur deux questions qui nous ont interrogés ici? D'abord, les problèmes de la tolérance religieuse et de la mise en œuvre de la tolérance religieuse. Je sais que le Qatar a pris certaines initiatives en la matière. Et deuxièmement, en ce qui concerne les travailleurs étrangers, puisque notamment dans la perspective du mondial, il y a eu également des questions que nous sommes posées en la matière. Merci.
Merci, Michel Alioumari. And now, colleagues, I would suggest, Your Excellency, that we do a round with the colleagues, and then you can sum up. In the meantime, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we're going to give you 1 minute each because we're under time pressure. We begin with Mr. Salafranca. 1 minute.
Gracias, señor presidente. Bienvenido, señor ministro. Hace un año de la ruptura diplomática, la ruptura de relaciones diplomáticas de su país con Emiratos, con Arabia Saudita, con Egipto, pero el bloqueo que su país ha sufrido por tierra, mar y aire no ha tenido efectos. Ustedes han podido mantener un diálogo constructivo con los Estados Unidos, han podido mantener sus relaciones con Turquía, han podido cerrar un acuerdo con Omán y con otros actores, pero al final el coste de esta situación es un coste en el que todos pierden. Pierde el Consejo de Cooperación del Golfo, ustedes tienen también costes económicos, aunque han sabido demostrar una cierta capacidad de resistencia. Me interesaría, señor ministro, saber cuáles son las expectativas que ustedes contemplan. Nosotros hemos visitado hace muy poco como Comisión de Asuntos Exteriores Kuwait, hemos visitado Arabia Saudita, ayer estuvo aquí el viceministro de Asuntos Exteriores de Irán. ¿Qué confianza tienen en esa mediación de Kuwait? ¿Qué confianza tienen en la mediación de Estados Unidos? Acabo, presidente. ¿Y qué podemos hacer desde la Unión Europea para tratar de superar esta situación en la que todos pierden? Gracias.
Thank you. The speaking list is now closed. Mr. Panzeri.
Grazie, benvenuto signor Ministro. Io mi soffermerò solo brevemente sulla crisi nell'area del Golfo perché è per noi di grande interesse e siamo preoccupati dai possibili sviluppi e penso che per questo dovremmo impegnarci a costruire le condizioni per la soluzione dei problemi che sono presenti. Come diceva il Presidente McAllister, l'Europa intende favorire la mediazione del Kuwait, ma io penso che dovremmo fare qualche sforzo in più, qualche passo in più. Ognuno deve fare un passo in più. Penso al Qatar che deve mettere in campo una lotta più efficace al terrorismo, un impegno per un equilibrio positivo regionale e continuare sulla strada dell'estensione dei diritti umani. Ma penso che ci sia un lavoro anche da parte dell'Europa, dovrebbe non solo assistere ma facilitare questo dialogo e anche il Parlamento europeo potrebbe esprimere una posizione equilibrata. Penso che sarebbe ad esempio una buona idea se a partire dalla stessa delegazione del Parlamento europeo della penisola arabica si predisponesse un'iniziativa e una presa di posizione su questo.
Grazie. Mr. Bashir, 1 minute.
Thank you, Chair. Minister, Your Excellency, welcome to AFED, Foreign Affairs Committee. I salute your country on your efforts to establish Al Jazeera, an excellent, impartial platform, a very professional organization. I have two questions for you, Your Excellency. One, I'd like you to make comment as to the effect of the blockade on your nationals, of their right to travel, in particular religious sites in Saudi Arabia, effects on businesses. And I'd like your views on the mediation, if any. Would you welcome some mediation from the EU, as well as Kuwait and Oman? Thank you.
Thank you. For ALDE, Ms. Valina de la Nova.
Sí, muchas gracias. Buenos días, bienvenidos. Yo voy a ser muy concreta. A mí me gustaría preguntarle concretamente si ustedes defienden la resolución de la ONU de los dos estados, Israel-Palestina, y qué opina de la política que se hace últimamente ante el último conflicto sobre las manifestaciones en Gaza y el empleo de la violencia. Sobre todo usted ha hablado de la lucha contra el terrorismo. ¿Cree usted precisamente que estas políticas, llevar a la gente a la desesperación, no respetar sus derechos humanos, no respetar ninguna legalidad internacional por parte de Israel, cree usted que esto contribuye precisamente a la lucha antiterrorista o, por el contrario, llevar a la gente a la desesperación la lleva a tomar caminos que no son los que se deberían de tomar?
Thank you. For the Green Group, Ms. Lochbihler, 1 minute.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Excellency, for your statements. I have a question on the human rights situation, particularly on the migrant workers. When the workers were dying some year ago, we had a lot of hearings here in the Parliament, and it's very encouraging, actually, that you adopted very progressive laws on labor protection. I think you have to be congratulated for this. In this you also pledged, but you only pledged, to end the sponsorship system and to implement minimum wage. Could you elaborate a little bit how far you are on this reforming or getting rid of the kafala system? And secondly, perhaps in your answer, could you also look to the conflict in Yemen, a conflict where we have terrible war crimes committed, increasingly also against children? How are your reflections to come to a solution there? Thank you.
Thank you. For the GUI NGL Group, Mr. Koso.
Gracias, presidente. Señor primer ministro, la política de Qatar fue absolutamente nefasta en Siria. De hecho, por las críticas internacionales tuvieron que dar marcha atrás. Está comprobado el apoyo de Qatar a grupos extremistas como al-Nusra y a otros. En Yemen exactamente igual, hasta que fueron expulsados de la coalición. Entonces me gustaría saber cuál es la visión actual de Qatar, si han aprendido de esos errores que llevan aparejados crímenes de guerra, si han aprendido de que no deben apoyar a grupos extremistas, terroristas, y también qué piensan para la estabilidad regional en cuanto a Irán y sobre todo a la cada día más agresiva política de Arabia Saudí y de Israel. Gracias.
Thank you. For the non-inscree, James Carver.
Thank you, Chair. Your Excellency, thank you. You spoke of constructive dialogue. Are there any signs of optimism in relation to an improvement in Qatari-Saudi relations? And could you elaborate on the Qatari-Iranian relationship and whether your country has any influence to try to stop the flow of Iranian-funded arms and weapons into the Yemen? And finally, on that point, could you elaborate on the Qatari view on the current situation and long-term prospects for Yemen? Thank you.
Thank you, James Carver. Ramona Manescu.
Thank you. First of all, welcome, Your Excellency, to the AFET. I do hope that we can cooperate in a stronger way, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and AFET committee in particular. We did sign an agreement with DRA and Human Rights Committee in Qatar, and I think that would be helpful. We also need to be more proactive in the terms of stabilizing the region. When I'm saying we, I'm considering the European Parliament. And I would like to hear from your side if you have considered any further cooperation with European Parliament, and that considering that we do have common interest on counterfighting terrorism and radicalization. So maybe on this perspective as well as on the aid field, knowing that both European Union and Qatar is involved in the aid field. Thank you.
Thank you, Ramona. And finally, Mr. Khan.
Thank you, Chair, for the opportunity. Your Excellency, I'd like to just ask about the scope of the conflict with the Saudis at the moment. And we always are aware that it's not nice to interfere, and it's something that you can, as a GCC, can look at. But if this doesn't go well, is it not an opportunity for our great Chair, Michel Ali-Omari and DOP, to maybe play a role, and the European Union through AFET in particular, to see where, if the Kuwaitis, I know they are mediating, but if the things are not moving towards progress, is there an opportunity for some involvement there? My second point is in relation to, you made, as Barbara Lockerbie has mentioned, great strides in relation to the kafala system reform, but I've just realised domestic workers are not under the Qatari 2004 labour law. Wouldn't it send a good signal to include them? There's lots of women there who are vulnerable, if you can also give them the same protection as the Qatari law. Thank you.
Thank you. 10 speakers.
Thank you very much. Actually, 10 speakers with 30 questions, so I think...
Welcome to the Foreign Affairs Committee.
So, please, if I miss any point, just let me know. But I try to wrap it up as much as possible. Where first, regarding the question about Qatar political and economic role in the international scene. A part of our national vision is driving the economy toward diversification, where we are relying, the majority of our GDP is coming from the hydrocarbon sector. So we adopted this vision of diversification, and we worked, and we have achieved very good progress, where we started with around 86% of our GDP is hydrocarbon. In 2017, it's almost 50% is hydrocarbon, and our vision that to minimize the contribution of the hydrocarbon sector to our economy. And we have used different tools, which whether it's investing in the economy by diversifying different industries, trying to develop the industries for more downstreams and to cover the value chain, building infrastructure such as the airport, the seaport. In fact, Qatar seaport, which was just opened in September, now it's capturing around 27% of the regional trade. Also, part of our economic diversification plan, when we decided to establish the sovereign wealth fund, where when the oil prices were at higher level, we decided to invest all the surplus from the revenues of our oil sales in international investments. So we targeted a lot of good companies, world-class companies, whether it's in Europe, in the United States, in Asia. Still, Europe is the major destination for our investments, whether it's in financial sector or in different industries, and these investments are doing quite a lot. About Qatar efforts in the counter-terrorism and what we have done in order to fight the radicalization and the extremism in our region. Qatar has invested a lot, and part of our international development agenda, which we have, which I just mentioned in my opening remarks, is to fight the root causes of the terrorism. Regarding, if we are going to look at the counter-terrorism from two different aspects, whether it's tactical or strategic, in the tactical front, Qatar is the center of the coalition counter Daesh, and we are hosting the forces of the coalition and providing them with all their needs. Our armed forces is participating in this fight with all the logistical supports as well. In terms of fighting the terrorist financier, there is a lot of development in our legislative system since 2014, when we start to notice that the fundraising for the charities there were possibilities for them to go to the wrong hands, or the use of the social media to raise funds. We developed our legislations, and those people are prosecuted in our judicial system, and we continue this development. We see that we have done, yes, a lot, but there are also more to do. There is always a room for improvement, and this phenomena is not only new for Qatar, it's new for the entire world. So we have to cooperate and to have more increasing dialogue and cooperation with different countries. We have signed an agreement with the United States, and this agreement has a lot of technical assistance and capacity building programs which we are benefiting, and we have progressed a lot. We have signed an agreement with France as well, and we conducted the first counterterrorism dialogue just last year. We are also discussing this with other countries where we see where we can strengthen our network of information for the terrorist financier, and developing more the legislative system. There are also, you have mentioned about our domestic policies, whether it's in the religious tolerance and in the labor rights. Qatar has been, we have hosted an interfaith dialogue for 20 years. And we are doing this, we have been doing this for the last 20 years, and we are practicing it. People from different religion, they practice their religion freely. And we have opened also a place for worship for the Christians, which is there available, and a clear demonstration for this tolerance. In fact, there are other countries, they are even confiscating Bibles and the cross in the airport. So there is a lot in Qatar. We believe that our coexistence need for us to have such a dialogue in order to contribute positively to the humanity. About the labor rights, there is a lot of progress being achieved in the past years, and here is the difference when we talk about a country that accepts the criticism and try to deal with it positively, and countries which are not accepting even or not allowing anyone to criticize them and take measures against any critical points. We welcomed this criticism when EU Parliament member, they came to us, they visited us for the past 3 to 4 years now, and there is a lot of changes since 3 years until now. We have increased the intensity of our cooperation and our dialogue, thanks to also to our friends. We have signed the agreement between the Human Rights Subcommittee with our national human rights, and we are looking to expanding this cooperation with the Foreign Affairs Committee, with other also government agencies. We are sharing with you the same values. One is meaning a lot for us. So we are not going to accept that one labor die in a working site because of the lack of inspection or the lack of laws and restrictions for the contractors. And the country is doing its best in order to achieve the best result for the laborers and to provide them with the best condition. We see them as a partner in our development and as a contributor to this development, and they are playing a critical role in our progress as a country, as a small country with a small population, and we highly appreciate this. Regarding the death of the workers, there were some of the questions about it. One is equal to 1,000, equal. One labor matters as the others, but the system there in Qatar doesn't tolerate the death of the one labor even before any reforms, if there were a lack of restrictions and rules. What we did, we intensified our efforts in the inspections. We have doubled the number of the inspector. We have developed also our cooperation network. Now the ILO, they have their office there in Doha, and they are helping our Ministry of Labor in their capacity building. Just to, I'm trying to combine everything about Qatar together so I can talk about the regional issues. Two more minutes? 3 or 4. Okay, thank you. So, regarding the sponsorship, which the kafala system, and the kafala system is over already now. The new law is in place, and all the companies, they are changing according to the new law, where the employment relation is a contractual relation, is not a sponsorship relation. And regarding the wage protection system is in place now for more than a year, and it's working very well. Just about the Gulf crisis and the way forward. We see that there is currently we are in a stalemate. Qatar we're open, expressed its openness to dialogue, welcomed all the efforts by the friendly countries. Kuwait is the main mediator and the lead in these efforts, and all our international partners are supporting the mission of the Emir of Kuwait. Qatar has engaged very positively with the Emir of Kuwait until also the recent letter sent by the Emir of Kuwait inviting all the GCC countries to come and to discuss all these developments and to discuss the Gulf crisis. Qatar was the only country which responded to the Emir of Kuwait. Our response went to them like 3 weeks ago, and none of the other countries has responded yet. So we see that the resolution will come by a peaceful dialogue. It won't come by imposition or by using a zero-sum game strategy. We believe that everybody is losing because of the crisis. Our people are losing because of this crisis. Our regional security is losing, and our international partners are losing the GCC as a united bloc. And thanks to the blockading states, they are just trying to ignore the fact that they are implicating the regional security. The future of the GCC, we hope that the future of the GCC will be a prosperous future. But first of all, we need to see what are the principles which we are binding for the GCC members not to launch an assault on other member states, and how we can develop those principles further to make sure that our collective security is respected. Regarding the situation in Syria and the question about Qatar's role in the situation in Syria and Qatar's support to al-Nusra, unfortunately, who mentioned that Qatar supports al-Nusra, this is based on false information. Qatar never supported al-Nusra or any of the extremist group in Syria. Our support was clearly channeled to the moderate opposition, where we have other European partners with us in this support. And it's not only Qatar, it's Qatar, Saudi, regional partners, and European partners and the US together in one operation room where we channel all the supports. Some of the media, unfortunately, affected by the propaganda campaign which has started against my country, which started the entire crisis. And we hope that the people will do more research about the fact that Qatar never tolerated those extremist groups. We never went and support people who pledge allegiance for Al-Qaeda or Daesh. If they are considering the West as enemies, they considered the Muslim countries as traitors. And this is, for us, we believe that this is more a threat than being considered as an enemy. So we know that these radical groups, at the end, they will come back and it will harm us as countries, as Muslim countries, and in the region more than anyone else. So we know and we recognize this fact very well, and that's why we are working very much strategically in making sure that there is no funds going to terrorism, that the terrorism is fought even in the long term when we are investing in education and economic empowerment. When I provide children out of school with opportunity for education, I am replacing the weapon and the gun with a pen. And I am giving him a weapon for his future to build a better future for himself and for the region. I know maybe I missed some points, but last point, I think it's about Iran and Qatar relation with Iran. Qatar, we have differences with Iran in our policies, and we see that those differences are critical for our region. But everybody agrees that those differences can only overcome by engaging in a direct dialogue, not trying just to confront or to fire more proxies in our region. Now, who are paying the price of these conflicts? The people of our region, either whether it's in Syria or in Libya or in Yemen, and the other countries. What we are seeing as a situation in Yemen, we were part of the coalition in 2015 when it started, because it meant to be to bring a political solution and to bring the people around the GCC initiative. The entire direction has shifted, and now we are seeing secret prisons, we are seeing torture, we are seeing a conflicting agenda by the coalition members, and we are seeing no progress and no hope for any political support. Qatar will never support Iran position or other position on the Yemen war. We are not going to support the coalition position on the Yemen war. We are supporting that the Yemen people get more stability and the Yemeni factions to come together to the table and find a solution for their own people. Yemen is a vulnerable country at the verge of collapse, and now we have 10 million people, they are suffering from starvation, and with the recent operation of Al-Hudaydah, more than 8 million are subject for the starvation. So we will end up at the end of this year with the 20 million people in Yemen, they are suffering from this, all these violations, and yet we see the international community is mobilized only with condemnation, not more than this. We need to see actions, we need to see these wars, all the wars in our region to stop and to come back to the reason and to the wisdom.
Your Excellency, thank you for accepting our invitation. Thank you for coming and thank you for this exchange of views. I think this was very valuable for the members of our committee. You know that Qatar has many friends in this committee, but we remain neutral in the Gulf crisis, but what we call for is unity in the GCC, and I think that your messages today were very helpful.
Well, thank you very much. I would like to thank you all for coming and to invite the foreign committee member and the other subcommittee members to come and visit us in Doha and see themselves what I have been talking about as a vision in reality and not just in theory. Thank you very much.
Thank you.